Welcome to the Deep Dive, where we like to take some of the more complex research out there and make it not just understandable, but like really genuinely interesting for you.
Right. Yeah.
So today we're diving into this fascinating research article,
Okay.
and it's from the Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion Journal.
Ah, cool.
So right up our alley.
Yeah, definitely.
The title of the article is Progress and Challenges in Narrowing the Gender Publication Gap in Parity.
Catchy.
And we have just the expert to help us navigate all these complexities.
Well, I don't know about that, but I'll try my best.
All things gender and research.
Okay, cool.
And by the end of this deep dive, you'll understand the current state of gender representation in academic publishing, particularly in management and related fields. And we're going to look at whether that gap is shrinking or widening.
All right, sounds good.
So it's a journey through the data with some surprising twists and turns along the way.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, let's unpack this. The research tackles the gender publication gap. And I have to admit, I was surprised to learn that while a gap still exists, women's publication rates are actually growing faster than men's.
Interesting.
Can you elaborate on that a bit?
Yeah, so it's not just about who's ahead right now,
Right.
But it's like who is closing the distance faster.
Okay.
Guinness and her co-authors use this technique called allometric analysis
Okay.
to compare these growth rates.
And that's like comparing...
It's like comparing the speed of two runners where one had a head start.
Okay, so women are sprinting to catch up.
Exactly.
Like that.
To give you a concrete example, the study found that if a woman publishes 8 articles in a given period, a man would likely publish fewer than 5 in the same time frame.
Wow, that's a significant difference.
Yeah.
Is this faster growth rate consistent across all areas of management research, though?
That's where it gets interesting.
Okay.
So the study distinguishes between micro and macro fields
Micro and macro.
within management. So micro fields delve into individual and group behavior,
Okay.
like organizational behavior, while macro fields focus on the bigger picture, such as strategic management.
Okay.
And the faster growth rate is particularly noticeable in those micro fields.
So women are closing the gap more rapidly in areas like organizational behavior compared to, say, strategic management.
Exactly.
Now, this brings up the question of whether the playing field ever truly levels out.
Right.
When can we expect this gap to close completely?
That's where the concept of gender publication parity comes in.
Okay, gender publication parity.
So parity is achieved when the proportion of publications by women matches their representation in the field.
Makes sense.
Think of it as fair representation in the research world.
Yeah, I like that a lot.
Yeah.
So did the research uncover when we can expect to reach this parity?
Well, there's good news and, well, not so good news.
Oh, boy.
Parity has already been achieved in some microjournals,
Okay.
like the Journal of Applied Psychology. However, some macrojournals aren't projected to reach parity even by 2051.
2051, that seems so far away.
Yeah, it is a while.
But wait, wasn't there another surprising finding about women as lead authors?
Yes, and it's really encouraging.
Okay.
Regardless of the number of co-authors, the study found that women are already exceeding parity when it comes to lead authorship. This means they're the primary authors taking the lead on these research projects.
Wow, now that is surprising.
Yeah.
But why are we seeing such a difference in progress between the micro and macro fields?
The researchers suggest a framework called situational constraints.
Situational constraint.
Yeah, and it argues that both tangible and intangible factors
Okay.
can hinder an individual's progress.
So like obstacles in a race.
Exactly.
Some you can see, some you can't.
Exactly.
Okay, I like that.
Tangible constraints could include things like access to research funding
Sure.
and, crucially, having enough time to dedicate to research.
Yeah.
The article acknowledges some limitations regarding the funding data, but does highlight the invisible work often shouldered by women in academia, which can significantly impact their research time.
That makes sense. Invisible work like administrative tasks or mentoring
Right.
can really eat into the time available for research.
For sure.
But what about those intangible constraints?
Yeah.
What did the researchers discover there?
So the study highlights this fascinating difference in mentoring programs between micro and macro fields.
Okay.
It seems there are many more programs specifically designed to support women researchers
Uh-huh.
in those micro fields,
Okay.
which could explain why they are achieving parity faster.
That makes you wonder if those mentoring programs are directly contributing to the faster narrowing of the publication gap.
Right.
Huh.
So Guinness and her colleagues took a closer look at this, and they compared two microjournals,
Okay.
Journal of Applied Psychology and Group and Organization Management,
Okay.
with a macro one,
Okay.
Strategic Management Journal.
Okay.
And what they found is that the microjournals with their more robust mentoring programs were indeed closing the gap faster than the macrojournal. The difference was even more striking when looking at the projected timeline for achieving parity.
So targeted support can make a real difference.
Yeah.
It also raises the question, why aren't there more mentoring programs for women in those macro fields?
It's a great question and one that deserves further exploration.
Yeah.
Shifting gears slightly.
Well,
The research also delved into the composition of editorial boards.
okay. Editorial boards.
Yeah, the folks who decide which articles get published.
Right. Those gatekeepers of knowledge.
Exactly.
What did the researchers discover about those boards?
They compared journals with higher percentages of women on their editorial boards
Okay.
to those with lower percentages.
Okay.
And as you might have guessed, the journals with more women on their boards showed a faster narrowing of the gap.
Hmm.
Not only that, but they were also projected to reach parity sooner.
That's fascinating. Do you think these journals with more women on their editorial boards are more likely to support research on gender and diversity?
It's possible.
Could they be more attuned to these issues, leading to a faster reduction in the gap?
It's certainly possible, and it highlights the importance of representation at all levels.
Uh-huh.
Having more women in leadership positions
Right.
can contribute to a more inclusive and supportive environment,
Yeah.
which in turn can influence the types of research that are funded and published.
It sounds like a domino effect.
Kind of, yeah.
But let's bring this back down to earth.
Right.
Why should the everyday listener care about what's happening in academic publishing?
Yeah, good question.
How does this research impact the world outside of academia?
Well, these findings have real-world implications.
Okay.
They can impact hiring, promotions, and even pay equity in universities.
Wow.
Understanding the dynamics of the gender publication gap
Uh-huh.
can inform policies and practices aimed at creating a more equitable academic landscape.
So it's not just about numbers on a page. This research has the potential to impact the lives and careers of real people.
Exactly.
Now, before we wrap up this part of the deep dive, is there a question that we can leave our listeners pondering something to really get them thinking about the implications of these findings?
Absolutely. So we've talked about women exceeding parity when it comes to lead authorship.
Right.
If leading a research project often involves coordinating with co-authors, managing different personalities, and synthesizing diverse ideas, does this suggest that women are particularly adept at collaboration? And if so, what can we learn from their approach?
That's a fascinating question. Are women better collaborators? And if so, how can we leverage this strength to foster better collaboration in research across all fields? We'll delve into these questions in the final part of our deep dive. Welcome back to the deep dive. We've been exploring this thought-provoking research on the gender publication gap, and it's raised some intriguing questions about collaboration and leadership in research.
Yeah, it's fascinating to consider the possibility that women might excel in certain aspects of research leadership.
Right, and particularly when it comes to collaboration.
Yeah, exactly.
And the last part, you left us with this question. Are women better collaborators? Especially since the research shows they're exceeding parity in lead authorship roles.
Right. So leading a research project often requires bringing together diverse perspectives, navigating different personalities, and coordinating efforts across multiple authors.
It's almost like conducting an orchestra, making sure all the instruments are playing in harmony to create a beautiful symphony.
That's a great analogy.
Thanks.
And if women are consistently taking the lead on these complex projects, it could suggest they possess a particular strength in navigating the intricacies of collaborative research.
Right, which could have significant implications if women are particularly adept at collaboration. Then understanding and fostering these skills could be incredibly valuable for research teams across all fields.
Absolutely. And it challenges some traditional notions of leadership, too.
Uh-huh.
Well, perhaps the lone wolf hyper-competitive model isn't the most effective way to produce groundbreaking research.
So maybe what we need are more collaborative, inclusive leadership styles, drawing on the strengths that women are demonstrating in the research world.
Right. It's an exciting avenue for future research to explore how different leadership styles impact team dynamics, productivity, and innovation.
Yeah, I like that.
And let's not forget the potential impact on mentorship.
Right.
If women are excelling at collaboration, they could become incredibly valuable mentors for aspiring researchers, guiding them and helping them navigate those situational constraints we discussed earlier.
It's about creating a supportive network, fostering those collaborative skills, and ultimately building a more equitable research environment where everyone can thrive and contribute their unique talents.
Yeah, exactly.
So as we wrap up our deep dive into this complex topic, what's the one key takeaway you hope our listener walks away with?
I think progress is being made.
Hey.
The research landscape is changing, and women are playing an increasingly vital role. However, it's crucial to recognize that we can't become complacent. We
Right.
need to keep pushing for greater equity and inclusion, dismantling those barriers, and celebrating the contributions of all researchers.
Beautifully said. And on that note, we'll wrap up our deep dive into the gender publication gap. We hope you've learned something new, had your assumptions challenged, and are feeling inspired to contribute to a more equitable and inclusive research world. Thanks for joining us on the deep dive.